Good afternoon. Residents who remain displaced by a stubborn fire at a pair of East York condos will receive an update on the situation today.
Firefighting efforts are ongoing as flames continue to burn behind the walls at the two buildings in Thorncliffe Park. CTV's Janice Golding joins us live from City Hall, where the fire chief is set to provide an update later today. Janice.
Hi, Nathan. As you mentioned, we are live right now in City Hall awaiting an update about the hundreds of displaced residents in Thorncliffe Park. Fire Chief Jim Jessup has been providing the media with updates every day since last Thursday, and at last check yesterday, he told us firefighting efforts remain ongoing and that fire crews were expected to continue battling the fire into next week. What that means is that he was unable to provide a timeline as to when residents would be able to return home. The fire, which was detected at around 1:30 p.m. last Thursday, is believed to have broken out in the P1 parking level of 11 Thorncliffe Park Drive. By evening, the fire had spread to the building next door, 21 Overley Boulevard. The chief says it's the most complex blaze Toronto fire has seen in 40 years. What's burning is a combustible particle board that's in the expansion joint between the two buildings, and getting to it has proven almost impossible. The chief says Toronto Fire, Toronto Building, and third-party engineers were called in to help tackle the blaze, which senior operations commanders haven't seen the likes of in 40 years. Meanwhile, Toronto Emergency Management and the Red Cross are trying to help the displaced, and at last check had housed 293 people in 117 hotel rooms. So again, we are awaiting an update from city officials at 1 p.m. and we'll have the latest for you tonight at 5. Reporting live from Janice Golding. Now back to you, Michelle and Nathan.
Thank you, Janice. Two people have been arrested after a police vehicle was involved in a collision with a stolen car in North York. The car was found by officers near the 401 in Weston Road. A suspect ran from the scene but was arrested a short time later. A gun was also recovered at the scene. Meanwhile, a second vehicle, which was also stolen, was located in the same area. A second person was arrested in connection with that vehicle. Police are still searching for a third suspect. Police say the vehicles were stolen from the area of John Garland Boulevard and Martin Grove just before 1 o'clock in the morning. The two people who were arrested were treated for minor injuries.
York Regional Police are investigating a single vehicle crash in Markham. Police say the vehicle collided with a light pole in the area of Markham Street and Bullock Drive around 1:30 a.m. No injuries have been reported in connection with this incident. The cause of the collision is under investigation.
New data indicates Ontario is the epicenter of winter collisions in Canada. Tech and fleet management company Samsara analyzed commercial driving data from 2022 to 2025. It showed Ontario's winter crash rates climbed nearly 150% in the lead up to Christmas. In the GTHA, most crashes in the winter happen on the Burlington Skyway and where highways 401, 403, and 410 meet in Mississauga.
New data from Statistics Canada shows more young people were charged with murder in 2024 than the previous year, even as the national homicide rate fell. 72 youths were charged with murder last year, up from 65 in 2023. Among those cases, 13 incidents involved multiple young people being charged. Across Canada, police reported 788 homicides in 2024, 8 fewer than the previous year.
An off-duty York Regional Police officer has been charged with dangerous driving. The 53-year-old woman was charged in connection with an alleged incident at the Innisfil Santa Claus Parade on November 23rd. Police say they received calls about an Audi SUV jumping the curb and trying to access the parade route on Innisfil Beach Road before driving away. No injuries were reported in connection with the incident.
Still to come on CTV News at noon, public hearings are being held in Washington today as part of a mandatory review of the Canada-US-Mexico agreement. We'll have those details a little later in the newscast. But first, a Brampton defense company has secured a contract to provide armored vehicles to the U.S. Department of Immigration and Customs Enforcement, also known as ICE.
U.S. government procurement records say Roshel was the only company which could meet ICE's technical requirements. CTV's Rahim Ladhani has been following this story and joins us live with more. Rahim.
Hi, Nathan. We're here in front of a very large manufacturing plant which belongs to the company Roshel, which is a defense manufacturer headquartered here in Brampton. U.S. government records show that ICE, also known as Immigration and Customs Enforcement, has procured 20 armored vehicles to be delivered within 30 days from this company. Now, Roshel has a history of supplying both Canadian and U.S. governments with tactical vehicles. However, this order comes in the middle of a trade war between the two countries. And despite U.S. President Donald Trump touting an American first agenda and slapping tariffs on several Canadian industries, his government is spending more than $7 million U.S. to buy these emergency response tactical vehicles. In the documents, officials defend the purchase, saying a handful of American companies were asked but couldn't meet the timeline, and say delaying it would hinder ICE's ability to deploy mission-critical resources in a timely manner. Now, these vehicles, which are built to withstand bullets, will be sent to help ICE, which is currently mired in controversy, facing allegations of its own of human rights abuses as they carry out Donald Trump's widespread immigration crackdown. Now, we have reached out to Roshel and are also reaching out to Canadian government officials for comment on this insight, and we'll have more details when we receive a response later on CTV News. Rahim Ladhani reporting live. I'll send it back to you.
All right. Thank you, Rahim. The Toronto Regional Real Estate Board says activity, new listings, and average selling prices were down last month as potential home buyers remained on the sidelines. The board says just over 5,000 homes were sold in November, and that's down 16% compared to a year ago. The average selling price also dropped 6% compared to last year, falling to just over $1 million. The board says many GTA households want to take advantage of lower borrowing costs and more affordable or more favorable selling prices, but have been held back by a lack of confidence in the longer-term outlook for their personal finances.
To a certain degree, we would have expected the opposite because we've seen, an improvement in affordability in terms of, both mortgage rates and price as negotiating power has increased. But, what we haven't seen is an increase in consumer confidence. So people looking at what's going on south of the border, to a certain degree, also our trade relationship with China are saying, how is this going to impact my overall employment? And so there's a lot of people that have every intention on purchasing a home, but they're still taking a bit of a wait-and-see attitude.
Treb says home buyers are benefiting from a well-supplied resale market, but new construction is still crucial as that inventory is bought up. The Ford government is launching an advisory body to examine EQAO results and student outcomes.
This comes as the education minister has released the delayed test results. CTV's Queen's Park Bureau Chief Siobhan Morris has the details.
Months later than typical, results of the standardized test of Ontario students are in. The results held back by the education minister.
It frustrated me and made me quite upset.
For Paul Calandra, the EQAO results show
there have been inadequate progress in reading, writing, and especially math. Half of grade 6 students and 42% of grade 9 students are not meeting the provincial standard in math.
He plans to set up a body to dig into student learning.
The review will look at whether our curriculum and learning resources are clear and easy to use. It will consider how well teachers are being prepared and supported. It will examine whether students have the tools they need to succeed in the classroom.
The two-person panel will also examine testing and how it might be tweaked to better capture student achievement. I
will announce who the names are in the new year. They will be paid $1,500 a day, if I'm not mistaken, and $500 for the sub-reviewer.
Groups like ETFO have called to abolish the test entirely. The Minister of Education signaled for the first time today he won't make a final decision on whether or not to eliminate trustees by the end of the year. That had been the plan. But Calandra says he hasn't been convinced that trustees are vital. At Queen's Park, Siobhan Morris, CTV News.
Blue Jays outfielder George Springer is back in the city to support Make-A-Wish Canada.
He and a Make-A-Wish recipient helped launch Jack Astor's Santa's Secret Menu today. And our Jessica Smith joins us live now with more on Springer's return to the city. Jess, the Jays didn't win the World Series, but they were oh so close. And Springer is a hero in this country.
Listen, I want to start off with saying the biggest hero is Delphina with Make-A-Wish. Obviously, the Blue Jays are incredible. We've got Delphina, we've got the one and only George Springer. We got Megan from Make-A-Wish. You guys are obviously a big deal, but I have to start with Delphina. Delphina, what has this whole experience been like? Obviously, you're here to support other kids who want to get their wish granted, but what was this whole experience like for you?
it was just unbelievable. Like when I walked in Jack Astor's, I knew like I was just going to be a surprise the whole day, and like I stand by.
Yeah.
Like I stand by my sentence. It's been unbelievable.
It's been such a cool opportunity, and George, you're obviously here. You're an honorary captain with Make-A-Wish. We know that you're a star on the field, but off the field, these events are so important to give back to the community that supports you. What is it like being a part of this?
It's incredible. This is why I'm here, you know, for her, for other kids. I love these moments, and you know, anything I can do, I will.
Obviously, as a dad yourself, maybe this hits a little bit closer to home now. You mentioned that in the press conference. What does it mean to give back to other kids and their families? Because it's obviously for the children that are doing their best, but their families as well.
Yeah, I mean, you know, for me as a father, you know, I want my kids to have every opportunity that they possibly can, to have as much fun as they possibly can. So that being said, I want other families to have that. So anything I can do, you know, to try to help other kids and other families, I will.
And Megan, I know Make-A-Wish does so much work, but there are so many other kids that are in need. What does this mean to be able to kind of kick off this really fun campaign with festive food, but also know that you have a lot more work to do?
Right now we have 3,700 kids waiting somewhere in the country for their prescription for a wish to be fulfilled, and more being referred every day. The reality is that every 2 hours a child is diagnosed somewhere in Canada with a high-risk, life-threatening illness that qualifies them for a wish. So by getting involved, going to makeawish.ca, or just come on out to dinner at Jack Astor sometime this holiday season, you can help make these wishes come true.
Now, Miss Delphina, obviously you got to go somewhere pretty cool. Can you tell us where you went?
And I also went to see a spring training.
So I know Disney's pretty cool, but going to spring training must have been amazing. What was that like?
It was like awesome. Like just watching at the time that I did in February, it was just unbelievable.
I mean, obviously we're counting down the days to the next season. Are you ready for next season?
I will be.
Maybe a few more Sundays that you guys are making back in the kitchen will help out?
She ate like 3 of them back there. So yeah, maybe one less than her, but yes, 100%.
I feel like ice cream always helps a situation. Guys, thank you so much. We're going to have so much more fun. Nathan, I'm going to send things back inside to you. Maybe we're going to go get some Sundays. Maybe one more.
Yeah, maybe one
more. One more.
Why not? Go for
10
it.
more.
Thanks, everybody. Appreciate it. Take care.
Thank you, guys.
All right, we got more news in a moment, but first, a live look at the city this afternoon. Mostly cloudy for us today, and we might get a burst of snow tomorrow, though things become very cold. Lindsay Morrison has a look at the current conditions. Hey, Lindsay.
Hey, Nathan. Yeah, we're starting to talk about the coldest air of the season so far. We're starting to feel it today, and we will really notice it into tomorrow. We've made it to 0 degrees at Pearson Airport. Do not let that fool you, though. It still feels like -6 out there, and will as the afternoon progresses, because the winds have strengthened for today. Now, they are coming out of the southwest. We'll tap into a bit more of a northwesterly wind tonight and tomorrow. That allows for even colder air to move in. And look at that, the wind's already gusting upwards of 50 kilometers per hour in some areas. Now, we mentioned a burst of snow. We've got a little frontal system that may slide across the GTA a little later today, so chance of flurries, perhaps reducing visibility through the late afternoon or early evening in the GTA. We've also got another snow squall set up for the traditional snow belt areas near Lake Huron and Georgian Bay for today and for tomorrow. Here's today at a glance in Toronto. Forecast daytime high 2 degrees, but wait until you see just how chilly it's expected to be for tomorrow. We'll talk about that and take you through the weekend forecast coming up. For now, though, Nathan, back to you.
Thank you, Lindsay. Prime Minister Mark Carney addressed the Assembly of First Nations Chiefs in Ottawa yesterday.
Discussions focused on Ottawa's new agreement with Alberta on the creation of a new pipeline, but the Chiefs indicated their voices would be heard on a variety of issues. CTV's Abigail Beeman reports.
Do you respect the direction of the rights and title holders?
BC's regional chief among those with a rare chance to question the Prime Minister, as coastal chiefs are staunchly opposed to the new MOU between Ottawa and Alberta that sets the stage for a new pipeline.
I look forward to that meeting at the earliest opportunity.
Mark Carney says he will meet with the coastal BC chiefs and committed to a First Ministers meeting with First Nations early in the new year.
Under the leadership of the Minister of Indigenous Services, this government intends to introduce water legislation in the spring of 2026.
Key on the day one agenda, an emergency resolution to maintain the oil tanker ban and a call to scrap the new MOU.
This resolution has been accepted.
It passed unanimously.
First Nations in Canada are feeling overwhelmed, that they're feeling as though the duty to consult is being undermined.
Merle Alexander is representing 2 BC coastal First Nations.
There also is a real pushback against this regression on environmental and climate change policies.
Canada can create all the MOUs, project offices, advisory groups that they want, but chiefs are united. When it comes to approving large national projects on First Nations lands, there will not be getting around rights holders.
It's bad enough First Nations don't trust the government, and this makes it even worse.
The message about a need for more consultation coming not just from BC, but chiefs across the country.
We've had enough of being excluded, and there's going to be trillions of dollars going to be extracted over the next 10 to 100 years, and for First Nations to get chump change, it's not going to happen.
The Special Chiefs Assembly continues here until Thursday. Also on the agenda, a plenary session about the Major Projects Office and Indigenous Advisory Committee. Abigail Beeman, CTV News, Ottawa.
In Sault Ste. Marie, they're reeling from Algoma Steel's announcement of major layoffs. The company says U.S. tariffs are to blame for an accelerated timeline for their planned business restructuring. It will see the company lose more than a third of its workforce early next year. In an interview on CTV's Power Play yesterday, Algoma Steel's CEO says the federal government knew its business plan before it handed out hundreds of millions of dollars in loan assistance to help address the U.S. trade war. CTV's Scott Hurst has been following the situation. He joins us live now with more. Scott, what is the latest from the company and the reasoning here and what the government knew before?
Michelle, more fallout and reaction to the job losses at the major Canadian steel company. Algoma and its workers placing the blame for why the cuts are happening now squarely on U.S. President Donald Trump's 50% tariffs impacting Canadian steel and effectively closing off the plant's #1 customer. So in an effort to stem the losses, Algoma says the current punishing financial picture right now is forcing its hand to accelerate retooling plans, a major transformation that it says was announced in 2021 to a new modern steelmaking platform that does require a smaller workforce, a process that is less labor intensive. According to the CEO, the plant expected that transition to happen in 2027, but with U.S. tariffs and the impact that is having on its bottom line, those plans had to be accelerated, calling it an early pivot. Here's more from the CEO of Algoma Steel in Sault Ste. Marie.
We have a strategy. We are pivoting to the future of the Canadian market and the future low-cost production steel platform that this company will be operating on going forward.
So, Michelle, really what he is saying right now, with so few orders taking place, the company had to begin the transition, and job losses are part of that restructuring.
Well, these layoffs affect 1,000 employees. This is mere weeks before Christmas, and CTV News has spoken with some of the workers in Sault Ste. Marie. What have they been saying about this whole situation?
Of course, the timing is incredibly difficult for every single person who received that notice that their jobs will be eliminated early next year. So many of them are, of course, still reeling, and the impact it'll have on their loved ones and families, but also for the larger area, the greater area of Sault Ste. Marie, as 1,000 job losses by the largest employer in the region is a significant impact, not just on the plant, but of course on the entire city. Here's more from one of the workers who spoke to CTV News, who said he in fact found out he is losing his job in the new year.
The U.S. is our #1 customer, and we can't sell steel to them, so it's going to affect who we sell steel to, and we've been losing money, a lot of money every month. So we knew they were coming, and it's just when the actual day came, it's just still a shock.
Yeah, of course, still a shock. Michelle, we mentioned the timing is just incredibly unfortunate for these workers so close to the holidays. And as we mentioned, while these job losses were inevitable because of the retooling plan, it is years ahead of the original schedule, Michelle.
CTV's Scott Hurst live in the National Newsroom. Thank you.
Thanks, Michelle.
Liberal MP Stephen Guilbeault resigned from Prime Minister Mark Carney's cabinet last week over the agreement with Alberta. And speaking this morning, he said he doesn't believe the pipeline will actually get built.
Is it worth investing billions of dollars? And I think that's why we haven't seen any proponents of the project, whether to the south or to the west coast. There's no companies right now that are willing to put this money because the future prospect of being able to make this a lucrative business are diminishing.
Guilbeault pointed to signs of dropping demand for oil in the future. He reiterated he plans to keep sitting in the Liberal caucus. Public hearings are being held in Washington as part of a mandatory review of the Canada-U.S.-Mexico Agreement, or CUSMA. 3 days have been set aside for the hearings, which is part of the preparations leading up to the formal review of the agreement, which begins July 1st. Ahead of the hearings, a number of American industry leaders have been urging the Trump administration to preserve the deal and to remove tariffs on imports from Canada and Mexico.
The federal government has pledged more aid to Ukraine. Foreign Affairs Minister Anita Anand made the announcement in Brussels this morning, where she is meeting with her NATO counterparts to discuss the push for peace between Ukraine and Russia initiated by the U.S.
Canada's contribution to the purchase of this Pearl package will be $200 million, bringing Canada's total contribution to $890 million over the past 6 months.
In total, today's contribution from Canada is $235 million. The funding will allow NATO to provide Ukraine with medical supplies, communications tools, and support measures to rebuild critical defense infrastructure. Global Affairs Canada says the government has committed nearly $22 billion in funding for Ukraine since Russia invaded the country in 2022.
As Washington tries to keep peace talks going between Russia and Ukraine, U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio says he's trying to determine what terms each country is willing to accept. He spoke about the negotiations on Fox News Channel.
What they're literally fighting over now is about 30 to 50 kilometer space in the 20% of the Donetsk region that remains. And so what we have tried to do, and I think have made some progress, is figure out what can the Ukrainians live with that gives them security guarantees for the future, they're never going to be invaded again, allows them not just to rebuild their economy, but to prosper as a country. So what can Ukraine agree to, given all the dynamics that I've just described, and what will Russia agree to?
Meanwhile, the Kremlin says it's wrong to suggest Vladimir Putin rejected proposals at a meeting with U.S. negotiators in Moscow. Russian officials say the meeting was constructive, but a compromise over Ukrainian territorial concessions has not been reached. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky says his aides are preparing their own meeting with the Trump administration in the U.S.
To the Middle East now, where Hamas says it's handed over the body of one of the last 2 deceased October 7th hostages after it was found in Gaza. The armed wing of the Hamas-allied Palestinian Islamic Jihad group said it found the body after carrying out a search in northern Gaza. This comes after Israel says remains handed over yesterday did not belong to a hostage. The handover of the final bodies, it would complete a key condition in the U.S.-backed ceasefire. Israel has promised to open the Rafah crossing between Gaza and Egypt in the coming days in a sign that it is moving ahead with parts of the peace plan.
The death toll in last week's devastating high-rise complex fire in Hong Kong has risen to 159 as mourners continue to gather at the scene.
I think the entire population in Hong Kong would love to have the truth and the justice to be told.
Neighbors laid flowers at the memorial site as police continue to search through the charred buildings. Nearly 30 people remain missing, and recovery efforts could take weeks. 15 people have been arrested on suspicion of manslaughter, and 12 have been arrested in a corruption investigation. Authorities say substandard plastic mesh and insulation foam were used during renovation work, and it fueled the rapid spread of the deadly blaze.
Well, yesterday it was the morning commute impacted by a little bit of snow here in the GTA. Today, it's possible that our evening commute could be impacted, not by measurable or heavy snow, but just by a little burst that moves through, perhaps reduces some visibility out there. And again, doesn't amount to a whole lot, but different story in the snow belts. I think perhaps the bigger story over the next couple of days here will be the gusty winds and the very cold temperatures. In fact, tomorrow's forecast daytime high is the coldest we've seen since last winter. We'll take you through what you need to know heading into the weekend. On the other side of this break, you're watching CTV News at noon. We'll be right back.
When you see it happen, send it to CTV News. Text 10400. From your screen to ours. Text 10400.
Well, this is a week to dress warm. Don't expect it to warm up much. And then we also have some flurries in the forecast.
Yeah, lots, I guess, to look forward to. I guess if you do like the chilly weather, this is the time of year for you.
Nice and fresh.
I don't know how many of us are out there are those people, but yes, it is getting progressively colder as we make our way through the rest of the day today. Tomorrow looks like it could end up being our coldest day since there was a bit of a one-off day in early March last year. That was around -5 degrees, but otherwise we are talking last year, mid-February, that it was this cold last time, and it's going to feel like -15 tomorrow, even at the height of the day. Once you take those winds into consideration, it's just not going to last too long, so that's the good news. Let's get to your forecast. Weather is brought to you by the Presler Law Firm Injury Lawyers. You don't pay unless they win. We had a bit of a sunrise this morning, or at the very least, a nice hue in the sky. Didn't take long, of course, for the cloud cover to take over and really dominate, but this was a nice view from the CTV News chopper early on. I think many early risers also caught a glimpse of the pretty orange and pink sky this morning, again, before it became a little more gray out there. It's not just cloudy today, but it's also snowy in some areas once again, mainly east of Georgian Bay and around Parry Sound and north specifically. It's been quite snowy the last couple of days. This looks to continue. In fact, portions of Muskoka are going to get another round of snow for today. And really throughout these traditional snow belt areas, we will continue to see accumulating snow. For us in the GTA, it's less about accumulating snow and more just about as this front moves through, we could get a little burst of flurries that perhaps reduces visibility. And depending on the timing of its arrival, it might not be ideal for the drive home. But again, not looking at much in the way of accumulation. Maybe another dusting through today or tomorrow, but measurable snow continues in places like Owen Sound and Orillia, as well as Huntsville, for example. So here's the forecast radar. It's possible that these flurries could arrive earlier, perhaps around the evening commute, but there's about 11 p.m. tonight. You can see it's widespread in nature, and then behind that front, we're going to see the winds change from a southwest wind to a northwest wind. That cools us down, and it also leads to some lake effect squalls coming off of Lake Huron and Georgian Bay. We could get clipped by one or two of those as we progress through the next couple of days. Friday is a little bit quieter. It's still going to be cloudy, and then we're back into some flurries for the weekend. It is bitterly cold across portions of Manitoba and northwestern Ontario, so that's where some of the cold air is coming from. A reminder that our seasonal norm is 3 degrees. Yesterday we made it to 0. Today we might make it to 2, but it's going to feel like -5 at the warmest point of the afternoon. Overnight tonight, things get quite cool, -7 for the low. Wind chill -17 tomorrow morning as the kids are heading off to school. So this is quite cold. They need all the winter gear for tomorrow, snow pants, perhaps the long johns as well. We do become a little bit milder into the weekend, but another blast of Arctic air arrives for Sunday night. That's the weather for now. Michelle, I'm going to send things over to you.
Thank you, Lindsay. And you know, when it gets cold, we're nearing the end of the year. And with the end of the year comes all kinds of top lists. And YouTube has released its list of the top trending videos in Canada in 2025. And K-pop hit all the right notes with viewers.
Why does it feel right every time I let you in?
Not only was the hit Netflix animated movie K-pop Demon Hunters one of the top trending topics, but multiple songs from the musical were among the year's top trending tracks. Also, the song APT by Bruno Mars and Rosé of the K-pop group Blackpink was listed as the top YouTube song of the year after it was the 5th fastest music video to reach 1 billion views. And for more on the top trends, we're joined live by Alexandra Hunnings-Klein, Head of Communications at YouTube Canada. Alexandra, I don't even need all the words on those videos because we just know them by heart by now because we've heard it so much. And K-pop, as well as Netflix's Korean hit Squid Game, dominating this year's list of trending topics. Help us understand why this was also popular.
Listen, this was a season, this was a year where Korean culture really boomed on the platform. As you mentioned, Cat's Eye, an all-girls group, is a top trending topic in our list this year. In addition to K-pop Demon Hunters, Squid Games. This has been an incredible year for this type of content, and YouTube is a platform where this type of content can evolve and grow, and fandom communities grow. And it really, really reflects the massive interest in Canada and the kind of globalization of the culture, which is wonderful.
And what's your sense? Because it's not just, K-pop Demon Hunters, kids like it, but it seems like it's all ages. What's your sense of the type of people consuming all this content?
Listen, I don't know if we have a choice. As a mother, I have I have heard every K-pop Demon Hunters nonstop. And if you open the door at Halloween this year, I guarantee you would have seen maybe 50% of the girls dressed as a character from K-pop Demon Hunters. I think what really captured everybody was sort of the magic of the film, and then all the ways in which people could connect with it. Canadians went to YouTube to learn how to braid their hair in a similar fashion, to learn all the words, the dance moves. So there's the moment when the film comes out, and then there's the cultural phenomenon, the sort of secondary ingesting of the phenomenon, and it's really powerful.
Everything you say there happened in our household. The braiding I gave up, though. Even though it was very easy tutorials, I just had to give up on that one. But not just K-pop, gaming remains incredibly popular, particularly Roblox, both as a standalone topic and as a way for creators to reach audiences. What more can you tell us about consumption on that front?
So gaming is massive on YouTube, and gaming is a massive part of our culture right now. And there's so many different ways for people, not just children, as you mentioned, for people of all stripes to engage. And we saw huge growth with Roblox, different ways of interacting, different ways of sort of building communities. Nintendo Switch was also huge this year. Gaming is just a big part of our day-to-day. Gamifying different parts of life is just the way that we live in 2025. And so I think the way that it's reflected on YouTube is just sort of part of our culture and the zeitgeist.
Alexandra, before we let you go, did anything surprise you in 2025?
I was really pumped just to see that, we're in Canada, and often we'll see maybe hockey. These are sort of parts of our culture, but I think it's so healthy and interesting for us to learn about other groups around the world and then to create our own fandom therein. And I want to give a hat tip to the Toronto Blue Jays. And there's so many moments, cover this every day, that divide us. And the World Series really brought us together. And we saw those fandom communities on YouTube. Canadians were going to watch their favorite creator react to it, or to learn about how many innings could be in a game. We all remember that very, very long game. And so it was a moment this year that was super heartening because it brought Canadians together. We all felt part of it, and we learned more of it on the platform.
I second that. Alexandra, great to have you with us. She's with YouTube Canada. All the best to you, and happy 2026.
Thank you so much.
Still to come, a Kingston doctor is taking the province to court. We'll have more on her battle over what the Ford government says was improper billing during the pandemic when we come back. A Kingston doctor is taking the province to court over a request to have her repay hundreds of thousands of dollars.
The Ontario government is accusing her of improperly billing them during the pandemic. CTV's Katie Griffin has the details.
Hi there, can I get your health card number, please?
Scenes like this, a familiar sight during the COVID-19 pandemic.
In this situation, I was trying to help out the general public in getting 35,000 people vaccinated.
Dr. Elaine Ma organized drive-through vaccine clinics in the Kingston area. Years later, she's now fighting an order to repay the Ontario government $600,000 for improper billing in divisional court.
We're in a family medicine shortage, and we need to support our doctors. We need them to feel appreciated. And when on one hand, OHIP's attorney stands up and says, Dr. Ma did great work. Thank you very much. We're no way trying to diminish that. And then on the other hand say, but this actually wasn't anything extenuating, and therefore she should not only not be paid, but also should be out of pocket hundreds of thousands of dollars. Those two statements aren't congruent with each other.
The government says Ma misused an OHIP billing code because she hired unpaid Queen's medical students as volunteers, and the vaccines were not administered in her office. Writing in a statement, with the exception of one referring to Ma, who incorrectly billed the ministry for 21 times their eligible payments, all doctors who hosted vaccination clinics across the province use this special code to bill for vaccination at community clinics. Ma says there are broader impacts.
If the stance that OHIP has, which is that the physician can no longer bill for the services that are administered or done or performed by medical students, then essentially it is a situation where physicians are being asked to pay to train medical students. They're being asked to forfeit their own income. OHIP stepping in and saying, no, you can't do things in an efficient manner, then that limits our ability to provide care to our patients.
Katie Griffin, CTV News.
A group of medical experts and the Ontario NDP are calling on the Ford government to sign a bilateral deal to join the national pharmacare program. In particular, they want Ontarians to be covered for things like diabetes medication and birth control. 4 other provinces have already signed and joined the plan, which was passed by the federal Liberals last year. Now, the Ontario NDP wants this province to jump on board, saying having the cost of these drugs covered will be a game changer. This comes as the federal NDP asked the Liberal government to clarify how they plan to proceed with implementing the pharmacare plan. Still to come, relief efforts in Jamaica. We'll have more on a local push to provide aid in the aftermath of Hurricane Melissa when we come back.
Get Toronto's top stories, breaking news alerts, and watch live. Download the CTV News app.
Recovery efforts remain underway in Jamaica after the island nation was devastated by Hurricane Melissa. The storm made landfall October 28th as a rare Category 5 hurricane. At least 45 people died as a result of the storm, with thousands of others forced from their homes. Power has been restored to parts of the country, but the recovery effort remains slow. And here at home, a fundraising concert called Harmonies of Hope will be held at Meridian Hall December 10th. For more, we're joined live by well-known businessman and one of the organizers and founder of the Black North Initiative, Wes Hall. Wes, thanks for joining us. What are some of the realities on the ground in Jamaica currently, and what aid is needed most?
Well, Nathan, first of all, thank you for having me, and thank you for keeping the conversation going. A lot of people have moved on with their lives, but unfortunately, those folks severely impacted by Melissa in Jamaica, they cannot move on with their lives because in a lot of cases, those people have no homes. The kids are not in school. The hospitals are closed. The clinics are closed. They have no fresh water. They have no food. And the condition, quite frankly, is dire for some of those people, and especially in the rural parts of Jamaica. So you mentioned about 45 lives being lost, and it doesn't seem like a lot. And thank God that it's just a small number, and 15 people missing. But the after impact, not having fresh water, not having food, not having supplies, it's gonna take a long time for Jamaica to recover. For example, we know that Jamaica is well known for the hotel industry and hospitality. Some hotels, a lot of hotels are closed. In one case, just one hotel, over 2,000 people are out of work as a result of that. And that's just one property. So it's going to take a long time for Jamaica to recover. You mentioned about utilities. 31% of the island is still without power. And those in rural communities still have no telecom services, and it's really patchy. So help is really needed, and that's the reason why we're putting on this concert, to not only create awareness, but also to raise money to help those in need in Jamaica.
Understood. We're hearing that the damage was in the billions, some estimates.
Yeah.
What sort of support have you been receiving from Canadians?
Well, first of all, yeah, you're right. Damage is over $8.8 billion in damages. That's 41% of Jamaica's GDP. So could you imagine a hurricane coming through Canada or any kind of natural disaster coming through Canada, and 41% of our GDP was damaged as a result of that? That's the cost. So could you imagine how the scale and how long it would take for us to recover from that? So really, again, food, clean water, building materials. We need to rebuild people's homes so they can get back to their homes. We need to rebuild schools so kids can get back learning. and we need to really rebuild communities. So what are we doing here in Canada? Well, there's a lot of very generous Canadians that are actually helping with the effort, that are donating money, food supplies, and so on. We're not sitting, waiting, people are acting. So if you look at social media, for example, there's not a single day that goes by that Canadians aren't helping. And so far with our initiative, people are actually putting forward money, and it doesn't have to be 10,000, 100,000, or whatever. You can do $10, $20, whatever number you have. You can just go to Harmonies of Hope, put that number in, and we will be extremely grateful for your support.
And before you go, really quickly, because we're running out of time here, how big is this concert going to be? It's also being called a Bob Marley tribute.
Yeah, so we're going to be singing Bob Marley music, and people are going to be having fun while donating to a good cause at the same time. There's 1,000 tickets available, so don't miss out. Go to Harmonies of Hope, buy your ticket for you and your family and friends, and join us in the celebration and giving back to Jamaica.
Absolutely. Wes Hall, one of the organizers and founders of the Black North Initiative, thank you so much for your time, and all the best, and hopefully we'll talk again.
Nathan, thanks for having me.
With Black Friday in the rearview mirror, new figures are out suggesting there was a major surge in attempted fraudulent transactions. Visa says it blocked 38.5% more presumed fraud on Friday than it did for Black Friday in 2024. The credit card company shared that news alongside a survey showing more people are shopping with an eye out for potential shopping scams online. 74% of those asked in Canada said fraud schemes are getting more sophisticated and harder to detect. 63% worry friends or family could fall victim this season. About 1 in 4 said they know someone who's been fooled by an online payment scam in the last year.
Coming up, the Kitchener Rangers held their annual teddy bear toss last night. We'll have more on the charity initiative when we come back. The 30th annual Teddy Bear Toss was held last night at the Kitchener Rangers game.
Hundreds of plush toys came raining down onto the ice after the team found the back of the net in the second period. CTV's Karis Mapp has more on the charity event.
It was raining stuffed animals at the odd Tuesday evening after the Rangers' first goal of the game for the 30th annual Teddy Bear Toss.
They're extravagant every time. I love them so much, especially seeing all the bears fly all over the place.
Fans brought teddies of all shapes and sizes for the charitable tradition.
Watching all of the teddy bears kind of cascade over the sides, I think it's really neat, and just the community coming together and really giving and sharing.
The more the merrier. You know, we were going to come with 2. We thought maybe a few extras, just share the love a little more.
It may have taken longer than some had hoped, but the Rangers' second period goal was worth the wait.
Rangers get it back for Pridham. And let the sweet Hartley mayhem commence as Jack Pridham has the 2025 Kitchener Rangers Teddy Bear Toss goal. It's plush pandemonium in Kitchener.
We caught up with Pridham after the big moment.
It was awesome. Got the puck down low and put it on net. Great screen by Humps, and it was great to see it go in. It's obviously for a great cause. To see all the fans bring their bears, it's awesome.
That great cause will see the bears distributed to those needing them most in the community.
They'll go to local charities and organizations and also some local schools throughout the community from Kitchener, Waterloo, Cambridge. I think it just shows it's not only the organization, but the fans are involved in the community, and it has such a big community outreach just to give back in such a unique way with throwing teddy bears on the ice.
With Tuesday's packed arena, organizers were hoping for similar numbers as last year.
Last year we were around 10,000. We are hoping for the same tonight.
And they got just shy of that, with the final teddy tally coming in at 9,989. Karis Mapp, CTV News, Kitchener.
Looks good watching that video, doesn't it? I don't know why.
I want to go there so bad.
Just to throw the bear.
Kids would love that, right? And you've been there.
I have. I've been to the teddy bear toss game in Kitchener. It's fantastic. It's exactly how it looks. It's a lot of fun, and it's always exciting when that first goal is scored. I think I should mention, though, it is worth mentioning a lot of those bears end up benefiting the Salvation Army, and we, of course, are building a mountain of toys right now. If you're looking to join us on location for Toy Mountain tonight, we are going to be in Leaside at Access Storage. And if not, hopefully you can tune in tonight at 6. Let's do a weather recap. One more look at the satellite and radar. We've got a little bit of light snow impacting the snow belt areas. This is courtesy of some southwest winds. Once we tap into more of a northwest wind tomorrow, we could see some of those squalls and lake effect bands impact us here in the GTA. But first, it's going to get cold. Overnight tonight, the forecast low, -7 degrees, wind chill -14. And then look at tomorrow, daytime temperature, not nighttime, -5 degrees. This is our forecast daytime high. It's going to feel like -17 first thing in the morning. So bundle up the kids, bundle up yourselves. We haven't experienced air quite this cold since last winter. 7-day forecast. Okay, so we do become a little bit milder again for Friday, high of 0, 1 degree for Saturday. Chance of flurries really through the next several days. Sunday, back into some sunshine. We can look forward to that. But once again, it is going to be cold at night and for the start of next week. Nathan and Michelle.
All right, thank you, Lindsay. And that's it for CTV News at noon. Remember, you can get Toronto's breaking news all day long on CP24 and at ctvnewstoronto.ca.
For Lindsay Morrison and all of us here, have a pleasant afternoon. I'm Michelle Dubé.
And I'm Nathan Downer. Be sure to join us later for CTV News at 5 and 6. Have a great day.